on potential impacts on Texas. All right, so let's go ahead and get started now. Here are the main points. The chance of a tropical depression or tropical storm forming in the Gulf have increased since yesterday. We'll go over that on subsequent slides. A tropical disturbance or more organized tropical depression or storm is forecast to track from where it is now near the tip of the Yucatan northwest across the Gulf of Mexico, reaching the Texas coast, perhaps the lower or mid-Texas coast, around Friday. Whether the disturbance becomes more organized or not, we would expect a chance of some heavy rain Thursday through Saturday from this system. The other impacts, winds, tides, surf, will depend on how strong the storm gets. Certainly if it gets to be a tropical storm or even a hurricane, then those effects could be significant as well. The most likely scenario is the development of a depression or tropical storm, which would be called Joyce, and we'll need to monitor this carefully because we can't rule out, certainly, the development of a hurricane either. First, I want to show where the rain fell over the last 18 hours or so. Really tremendous amounts of rain near the coast. If you recall, yesterday we sort of featured the coastal areas, and it really was right at the coast. So southern Galveston, coastal Brazoria counties, up into the Texas City area, according to radar estimates and available gauge data, had several inches of rain, and we did have some fairly significant flooding in Texas City, and pretty widespread street flooding over these coastal areas. What are we looking at going forward? This map here is highlighting the areas of most concern, and no surprise, these are also the areas that have had significant rain already. So we are talking about that immediate coastal area, and we are looking at unfortunately sort of periods of additional rain and development along the coast. We don't expect a repeat of last night, with those tremendous amounts of rain, but we could get thunderstorm development again tonight and tomorrow morning in some of those same areas. So we do need to monitor that. There is no watch in effect at the moment. The forecasters are going to monitor radar trends, and if they see something setting up that could lead to flash flooding, you may see a watch reissued tonight if that becomes necessary, or any additional warnings. Let's talk now about the disturbance that's currently centered off the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula. You can see it there in both images, both satellite images. The disturbance now has a 50% chance of becoming a tropical depression or storm in the next 48 hours. So that's up from 30% earlier today. You also see all the other systems out there. Of course, Florence is a big concern right now to the Carolinas and Virginia. Notice Isaac as well. Isaac is forecast to cross the Leeward Islands and into the Caribbean Sea over the next several days, and that's a system we'll also have to watch over the next few weeks. But let's focus now on the disturbance off the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula. Again, a 50% chance of forming into a depression or storm in the next 2 days. And if you look at the next 5 days, it's actually a 70% chance now. So that's why the hatched area now appears red. We're looking at a higher chance of becoming a tropical depression or storm. As I said earlier, the track and the intensity are still very uncertain. Some indication reaching the Texas coast sometime around Friday, but the track and intensity, we don't even really have a well-defined system yet. Really difficult to predict. Forecast rainfall tonight and Wednesday. We're looking at generally 1 to perhaps 3 inches at the coast. Can't rule out, again, unfortunately, locally higher amounts. Anytime we get thunderstorms with high rain rates, we're capable of getting these bullseyes of higher amounts. So we are still a little concerned about flash flooding, again, mostly in those areas that have had significant rainfall already, and something we're going to have to keep an eye on at least the next couple of days. And then late in the week, as that disturbance or depression or tropical storm get closer, we would expect heavier rain to again overspread much of the Texas coast. The absolute heaviest rain would be closer to the landfall area, but potential for heavy rain as well up the coast in any banding. So this is sort of a first estimate on the rain just from this tropical system, and we're looking at, you can see there, 2 to 4 inches at the coast, lesser amounts inland, but as always, local amounts can be much higher in these heavier bands. I want to touch briefly on tides. We are expecting some increase in water levels, tides, and seas late in the week as that system crosses the Gulf and perhaps makes landfall on the Texas coast. The amount of increase is going to depend on, of course, how strong the system becomes. What you see here is a plot of water level, Galveston Bay entrance, based on sort of a weaker system scenario, and that's showing water levels above 3 feet above mean lower low water starting Wednesday evening, and that's sort of showing this to give you an idea of the timing of the higher water levels. The actual water levels may well differ from this, especially if the system develops a little bit more, then those tides could be indeed higher. And so if they were to stay between 3 and 3.5, the impacts would be confined mostly to those most vulnerable areas. But a stronger tropical storm or something of that nature, those tide levels forecast may well be raised. So just to recap, we have seen the chance of tropical depression or tropical storm formation increase from the National Hurricane Center, now 50% over the next 2 days and 70% over the next 5. The system is forecast to track across the Gulf of Mexico, reaching the Texas coast somewhere around Friday. Again, still very uncertain in the exact timing and track. Whether the disturbance remains a little bit disorganized or organizes into a depression or storm, we would expect either way a chance of heavy rain Thursday through Saturday near the center and also in any bands onto the right-hand side. The other impacts, winds, tides, and surf, are going to depend on how much strengthening occurs, and that's still uncertain. The most likely scenario is the development of a depression or a tropical storm, but we do need to monitor carefully because we can't rule out the development of a hurricane.